Welcome to the book of Shmuel Aleph, chapter 18, Perek Yud Chet, where we already celebrated the victory of David over Goliath. And now, guess who becomes David's best friend? Yonatan, the son of Shaul, becomes David's best friend. They become very, very good friends. As a show of their friendship, Yonatan gives David some of his royal clothing, his royal weapons, the belt that holds a sword, bow and arrow, and some equipment. And David becomes very successful. Shaul sends him on tasks. He becomes growingly more and more successful. Seems like everyone's going to live happily ever after. Well, jealousy can always ruin things for people. What happens here? As they go in the streets, David is celebrated, and Shaul hears the women singing, Hika Shaul be'alafav v'David berivevotav. Shaul struck thousands, but David struck tens of thousands. And when Shaul hears that when the women are singing, they're praising David as being more than 10 times greater than Shaul, yikes, he gets really, really angry. He's like, Natnu le David revavot veli natnu ha'alafim. They give me thousands, and they give David tens of thousands. All we need is David to be king. And next thing you know, he'll be king, Shaul complains, which is true. And so Shaul starts getting really, really angry and envious and mad at David. Next day, what happens? Shaul becomes really, really angry. He's prophesying in the house, and David is playing music. Remember, every time Shaul gets angry, David plays music, and Shaul is holding a spear. And Shaul takes the spear, and he's like, I will kill David. And he throws the spear once and twice at David, but David is very quick and flexible, and he dashes and he dodges the spear that is thrown by Shaul twice. And Shaul is like, you know what, go, you can't be near me. And he puts him in charge of the army, and David is succeeding in everything, and that causes Shaul to even be more anxious and afraid, because everybody, not only is David a great warrior, but everybody loves David. All the people are absolutely loving David HaMelech. So Shaul decides he's going to try and get David into a trap. He says to David, oh, here's my daughter Merav, why don't you marry her? He says, okay, but here's, basically the plan of Shaul is to give David a challenge that will cause him to go fight against Plishtim in a dangerous way, and that will cause David to die. So Shaul won't kill him directly, but he's trying to send David on a mission that's going to cause him to be killed. So he's like, yeah, here's my daughter Merav, why don't you marry her? I just need to give you a little task to go fight against the Plishtim. And David is so humble, he doesn't realize he's being led into a trap. He's like, oh my gosh, I come from such a humble family, and who am I to marry the king? And anyways, I hear that she's supposed to marry Adriel Mecholati, and no, it's not a good idea. So she goes and marries Adriel. But Shaul does not give up. He has another daughter. Her name is Michal. Not only does he have a daughter named Michal, but he hears that his daughter Michal is in love with David. So Shaul is like, you know what? Let me try and trip up David by promising him to marry my daughter Michal. And so he says to Shaul says to David, you know what? Why don't you marry my daughter Michal? And then he does something very sneaky. Shaul tells all of his people, every time you meet David, go over to him and be like, you know, Shaul really wants you to marry his daughter. That way David is going to they try and talk him into the whole idea of marrying Michal. And so every time David walks in an official capacity, people are like, oh, you're David? I hear that the king really, really wants you to marry his daughter. Wow, is that you? Now, he thinks they're saying it casually, but they're actually saying it because Shaul told them. Happens to be true that Michal loves him, but Shaul is really trying to trap him. So everyone comes to David, and David is like, nah. He tells all the people who try and get him to marry Michal, he's like, nah, who am I? I'm a little schnook. Am I really the guy to marry the king's daughter? That's for someone much more important than me. And Shaul tells all of his people, wait, that's what he's telling you, that he's not important enough to marry my daughter? Go back to him, not in my name, pretend it's like your own little thing that you're doing. Go and tell him, actually, all the king wants is someone who will prove that he has taken 100 Plishti lives, Mea Orlot Plishtim. He says you have to bring 100 foreskins of Plishtim, and that's all you need in order to marry the daughter of the king, the daughter of Shaul. So David is like, that sounds like a challenge I can accept. And he's like, yeah, why not? Let me do it. So David gets his act together, he brings his people, and he comes back to Shaul with not 100, but 200 orlot. 100, but 200 orlot. And Shaul indeed gives him Michal as to be his wife, but he's constantly... Shaul thought that David would die in the process of getting those Plishtim, but David does not die, and he succeeds, and he marries Michal, and Shaul keeps looking for ways to get David. Meanwhile, David is very successful. The Plishtim are afraid of him, and he's really doing very well for himself. That is the end of Perek Yud Chet. So what did we have here? We had, after the victory against Goliath, Shaul being, Yonatan, the son of Shaul, being David's best friend, loving him, giving him some military royal equipment, a sword, etc., a bow and arrow, etc. And then we have, okay, it sounds like also Shaul promotes David, everything's great, until Shaul hears that, what is it? Shaul hears that David is actually praised by all the people in the street. The women say, Hika Shaul ba'alafav v'David berivavotav. The women all sing and they say, Shaul, he got thousands of Plishtim, but David, he got tens of thousands of Plishtim. And that's when Shaul starts absolutely going bonkers, losing it, and he gets very depressed. So David comes to play music for the depressed King Shaul, and Shaul, who is so angry, takes a spear, throws it at David twice, and David dodges the spear and is still very successful. Shaul tries to get David to be killed by Plishtim. He first promises his daughter Meirav to him. David is like, no, I'm not important enough. Then he promises his daughter Michal, who actually loves David, and he says, all I need from you is 100 Orlot Plishtim. And Shaul gets all the people in his court to whisper to David and be like, oh my gosh, the king really wants you to marry his daughter. All he needs is 100 Orlot Plishtim. David is like, I can do that. He comes back with 200 Orlot Plishtim, showing that he killed the Plishtim. And he does not get killed in that process. And so Shaul has no choice. He gives him Michal as a wife, Michal, the daughter of Shaul. And it's from that point on that really Shaul is such an enemy of David. We're going to see that this enmity takes Shaul to very, very dark places. Let's see you next chapter.